What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fishing with Gramps. We're live here on a Wednesday night. I think at some point in time, we're going to start working on moving maybe back to Sundays, getting on that, summer schedule because we want to be fishing this time of year. Yes, and it's still sad to say my ass has not been in the kayak or the boat once this season. Only time I've gone fishing I was fishing below a spillway trying out a new rod, but that's what it is sometimes. Had a lot of stuff going on, took some time off making videos, went down to the classic, had a blast. We are going to do a Freedom Squad Friday with me and Matt and Jeremy and talk about just everything that went on down at the Bassmaster Classic. And that was really awesome. But again, I wanted to say hey to everybody, but again, the focus of the channel, you guys that have been around for a while know we started out teaching fishing during COVID because I had people asking, folks with, kids or grandparents with grandkids, and they remember going fishing when they were little. And, they just didn't remember much about it. And so people started asking me to make videos, and we did. And man, 200 videos, 2 years, 25,000 folks later, the fishing fam has really grown. Now, those of you who's been here a long time know that we've been spending a lot of time in kayaks for the last couple of years. Me and my boys started kayak fishing on the installation that I worked with, probably 8-10 years ago, because the place that was full of all the big fish, you just couldn't get a boat into. And that's kind of how we fell into kayaks. But, over the last couple of years, me, Matt, Jeremy, the guys in Freedom Squad have been out spending more time in kayaks. And, we got into like the little tournament thing when they shut me down off a base and I couldn't get on the honey hole, and then I went to a lake and, one day I go fishing and in come three dudes in kayaks. And I'm like, man, there's other people that kayak fish, but they were all rigged out. And I'm like, y'all have a good day, just out here hanging out. And they were like, no, we're fishing a tournament. And that was when my whole life changed again, because that's when I learned about grassroots bass yachting and the fact that there were actually people that fished in kayak tournaments out there. And well, you guys have been following along over the last year as me, Matt, and Jeremy have been out chasing fish on all different types of bodies of water and playing in local derbs and kind of get back into the tournament lifestyle. But along that way, I started watching other people on YouTube and, Christine Fisher, Fluke Master, and others. And then, that's when the whole like tournament thing really started, it's like dawning on me. Oh, these guys are fishing and filming their videos while they're fishing these tournaments. We saw John at Creek Fishing Adventures doing the same thing when he got into a kayak. And then when we went down to the national championship, just because we wanted to meet all of these people, that we've been kind of watching and following their adventures, like Christine and Gene and Chad Hoover and Casey Reed, so we did what we had to do to qualify just to go and be able to go down this last fall. And as part of that, I have been talking to you guys about more and more getting into Gramps, do some straightening up of the fishing wall. This whole mess back here, dude, I'm telling you, my kayak is sitting in the garage from when I finally got the helix wired up last weekend. When did I buy that? Like 2 months ago. All of my tackle, black pack, batteries, trolling motor, everything is sitting in a huge pile right there. I got lines, I got rods, reels. The Freedom Squad is going fishing this weekend, boys. I'm taking the guys out to Lake X. It's a place they've never been to, and that's where I normally catch my big ones. But again, my point is we've talked about moving a lot of the focus going into this next season about really encouraging more and more people to get out kayaks, because it's a great way and a less expensive way to get on the water versus being on the bank or trying to go buy a boat in this kind of economy. And, you can buy a kayak for a few $100 and a paddle and a PFD and go catch fish. Literally how we started a few years ago. If you guys have watched my progression going through a pedal kayak, and now the Cadillac with the trolling motor and all the bells and whistles. But again, our emphasis this year is really focused on getting more and more people into fishing. That's why we talk about the Catch 22. We talk about, because it's a nice, easy challenge. You can go out and, have fun and compete against your friend like Cairo and Sly Fox. They're in a little head-to-head tournament going on in Catch 22. And now, as you've seen with the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series, KBF is literally bringing out like a recreational side so that you can play in the month-longs wherever you're at in the country. And so that's real cool. But as you've seen over the past few months, we've had Fluke Master on, we've had Chad Hoover on, we've had Christine Fisher, we've had Casey Reed. And tonight I wanted to bring in a young guy, who is really blazing a trail in the kayak bass fishing world. Now, you're talking, we're talking pro level stuff in there. It's way above what me and Matt and Jeremy play at. But the cool thing is, we're literally seeing the sport of kayak bass fishing growing into that Bassmaster Classic style of fishing. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But first, I'm going to go ahead and bring in our good friend, Matt OEF5, and Mr. Jordan Marshall. Gentlemen, how we doing tonight?
Freedom Squad.
Good. How y'all doing?
Doing good. If you hear us, Jordan, if you hear us yelling Freedom Squad, the story behind that is me, Matt, and my brother Jeremy. We're all three disabled veterans. And we were out fishing, I guess it was last year on Matt's birthday, and he streams on Twitch when he fishes. So his whole crew, when we had like a veteran get together and we were out fishing on his birthday, they just named us Freedom Squad because that's what came to their minds. And we've been kind of rolling with that ever since. So like, you see us in our jerseys and whatnot with the, full up Merca all over it. That's where we really go with that.
You don't ever have to explain Freedom Squad to a guy with a mullet. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm talking about. See, you get them.
You got a hat on, so it doesn't look like you got a mullet.
There we go. Let it flow, baby.
That's not short on the top. Like a true mullet would be like, almost flat top-esque, or, that's the mullet. But
yeah, we kind of been letting it grow. I missed the memo during Christmas. I misunderstood him. I ain't cut it in a while. You know what I mean?
See, I have the reverse mullet, but the going bald thing. So
when you got that whole Hercules thing going on, having a string of great tournaments and several good years of fishing, you kind of just got to go with it. But I guess it's funny because a lot of the times we'll get on and we'll talk to pro anglers about their current recent tournament success and things like that, which we'll get into. But again, our goal is to try to really, most of the fishing fam here, some of them now have kayaks and are really getting into using their catch boards and catching fish. But I got to start from basically the very beginning. What first got you into kayak? What was your first kayak, and what made you go that route versus like the whole boat thing?
So I got into fishing with my dad. He got a bass tracker, which we still have. We were going out fishing weeknight tournaments, wildcat tournaments. And as everybody just saw, our local lake is Fort Loudon and Tellico. I live in Maryville, Tennessee. So we were, I grew up fishing Loudon and Tellico, and everybody just saw how tough Loudon and Tellico has basically always been. So, when I kind of got into something different, it was me and one of my friends from high school. We were wading some of the rivers around here. He got a canoe. We transom mounted a trolling motor on the canoe. We were getting out, and I was like, man, so there's got to be a better way to do this, right? So I got a kayak. I guess from my 16th birthday, I got a Pelican. I don't even know what it was. It was some sort of like 10, 11-foot Pelican. And I dropped it in a pond right in the middle of town where I live. And it was awesome because I fished it from the bank, and I knew there was big fish there and caught some fish. And then I kept going back, was catching bigger fish, was having a blast. And the first kayak tournament I actually fished in was put on by Drew Gregory. It was a college kayak fishing tournament on Guntersville, which I really like because that was kind of, mine and my dad's place to go. Summer over the summer, fall break especially, we would go to Guntersville. So our team, our Tennessee team, there was like 3 of us, all from just random community college all over the country, because there wasn't a whole like enough people to get from like one school. So we had like a whole Tennessee team. Went down there, team won. I finished second. I was like, man, I could get behind this, you know. So I just started fishing more tournaments and went from Pelican and bought a Coosa about a year later with some money I won from another tournament, and probably had the Coosa like maybe 8 months or so. Somebody was like, you need to get in a Hobie and try it. I tried a Hobie on a Saturday after a tournament and went and bought one 6 days later on a Friday. Right. that's why that's up there, because I've got like my original Hobie I bought like right behind that wall right there.
Yeah.
And I've had a Hobie ever since. And I've had pretty much the entire time, multiple Hobies the entire time. And I fell in love. It made sense to me. And I really like fishing skinny water. And I've just been fishing skinny water and everything I can get a kayak into and out of. And, you know, I've always been a shallow water guy, power fishing. That's my go-to.
Man, now we're talking.
Yeah. That's my thing. I like heavy line, flipping, throwing, you know, bladed jigs, spinner baits, buzz baits, all that. That's my jam, right? But I got live scope for the kayak. I'm trying to learn it, trying to be well balanced and all that. But that is the extremely long version of how I got into kayak versus then and now. I got a little everything. I just got a motor too. I just got a Newport, the new Newport.
Okay.
Yeah, just like you said, I've got stuff sitting everywhere.
And you've got a tournament this weekend, don't you?
Actually, I don't think I actually have a tournament this weekend.
Okay.
We got Good Friday. We got a big service in the middle of town that I'm looking forward to on Friday. Obviously, Easter service Sunday. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do Saturday. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards going and checking out the New River for the first time. It's not too terribly far away where I can kind of do that and go day trip it and lay eyes on something and to kind of get ready for that Hobie event we have later in the year. Never been there. I've always wanted to go. It's one of my bucket list places, and somehow I've ended up on every river, it seems like, and on the East Coast, but the New River.
I got you. That's
nice. All right. So to let people know a little bit about yourself, just heard that you were a college angler, which in JT and I's era, there was none of that. There was no TV. There was no YouTube. You might be able to get some fishing. There was no high school teams. You had to read Bassmaster magazine, right? In our era, if you wanted to learn how to fish, you had to read what the pros would write and then go try it without any form of education or whatever. Right. No, I know they still put it out.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying,
I keep them. They're right here. This is my hangout spot. I got a bunch of magazines sitting right here. That's my study spot.
But coming up through that kind of system now of being a college angler, getting into that tournament, that lit your fire. You were second. What are some of your accomplishments now that you've done since that time?
I have fished for Team USA and Hobie Worlds. I qualified 4 Hobie Worlds by being in the top 3 for Angler of the Year a couple times with Hobie B.A.S.S series, including winning the Angler of the Year for the 2021 season. I mean, I've won just a bunch of random stuff, lots and lots and lots of top 10s. You know, kind of the Hobie stuff is obviously, you know, the big bullet marks on things that I've won. I've, you know, done really well in a bunch of TOCs, things like that. But that's, you know.
So I think I saw like a Tennessee state champion.
Oh yeah, Tennessee
Bass Nation.
State
couple of Hobie Angler of the Year awards.
I got a Georgia state championship a few years ago as well. Kind of forgot about both of those somehow.
And then you just won the AmBASSador Series for
KBF.
KBF.
I won KBF AmBASSador Series at Guntersville 2 weeks ago. Three.
So we're not talking to a weekend angler like Gramps and I. We're talking to a pro. And I'm going to say that because you are at the pro level of where most people would try to want to get to that wouldn't. I mean, they have that dream, but there's just a different thing that sets pros apart. you know, because you're more consistent. So it's like professional golf or anything where there's a professional level. The average weekenders who put the tons of money in to the sponsors buying their product because you're winning in them, you know, things like that. It's so I just want people to know that you're at a different level than it's like Casey when he had Casey Reed on. You are a hammer. I mean, you don't get Angler of the Year by being okay at fishing.
And tell the folks how old you are again.
I'm 27.
Yeah.
So imagine having this many accomplishments at such a young age, and dude, you're just getting started.
Yeah.
You know, and it's amazing we're seeing such a growth in the sport. You know, you have got, you know, local derby level stuff, state level stuff, and now we've got several trails going on around the country. You were literally just fishing on the same waters with the guys at the Bassmaster Classic, and, you know, putting yourselves in a position to, you know, be able to walk across that stage and to have kayak anglers. And this is kind of funny because if you go back and look at it, I still say the kayak guys outfished the boat guys and had bigger bass at the weigh-in. What would have been our weigh-ins. I mean, that really goes to show the quality of the anglers we're putting at our top level. And they're going out there against, you know, the guys in the boats that are, you know, dealing with carrying around way more stuff than you guys pack around. And I still say we kick their ass.
Yeah, there's some absolutely incredible anglers in kayak fishing. Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and start naming them, but I'd leave somebody out. But we have incredible anglers. You know, it's really, you know, the gap from, you know, winning a lot of stuff, like, you know, guys like Russ. Russ is on a complete tear right now.
Oh, man.
Guys like Russ and guys that are barely getting into the TOC some years and have even been in there multiple times. The difference in that is not a whole lot. You know, we've got a very, you know, balanced field, you know, top to bottom, and, you know, comparing Chick to what those guys did on Loudon Tellico, being from here, that's apples and oranges. But man,
yeah,
I was a little disappointed by Loudon, even by my own standards of being a local.
Yeah. But I mean, it happens sometimes too. It's just, you know, you come off of a high of a big win and then go, you know, kind of home, and it's just not what you expected. But I mean, you guys had some tough weather too, watching, you know, the videos and listening to what everybody was saying, what was out there. And it's still, you know, they were still, you know, somebody always smacks them. So when you were coming, do you have, you know, being a young guy and still being a hammer, and in our sport is still fairly young, but did you have any like mentors in the kayaking, you know, that you would look up to and kind of, you know, model yourself after and kind of learn from a little bit to help you kind of elevate up a little bit?
Yeah, I've always tried to, you know, think of myself as a sponge, to try to really just take a little bit of everything around me and try to be really balanced. And, you know, I never want to be at a place where I'm ever not learning. You know, like just this past, you know, off season, you know, growing season is some like to call it. You know, I bought LiveScope, tried to learn it. One of my, you know, quote unquote LiveScope mentors is Ewing Minor, who's 21, and even though he's younger than me, he's incredible. I call him the LiveScope savant because he knows that better than anybody that I've been around. And, you know, I never want to be at a place where I can't, you know, ask somebody at any point, whether they're 6 years older or 6 years younger than me or 60 years older than me, that I can't ask them questions. I've always just wanted to learn and take everything that I can possibly get my hands on, and, you know, try to be a better person, better angler, better fisherman, you know, everything. You know, I never want to be at a place where I can't look at really anybody as a mentor. Now, that being said, you know, I mentioned Ewing for LiveScope. One of my buddies, Eric Thomason, who I've traveled with a long time, you know, he's been fantastic. You know, we've traveled together. He's, I give him a hard time. He's a little bit older than me. I think he's about to turn 51 here in a couple of weeks. But, you know, I've been giving him a hard time. So we've traveled together for about 5 years, you know, and He's been super helpful, just kind of from, you know, a mental aspect of, you know, when we first go places and, you know, I have a bad tournament and we'd have to drive 6 hours home, you know, that was super, super helpful to have, you know, him kind of, you know, help me out and, you know, kind of talk things over with on the way home, and, you know, learning how to manage expectations for events, because I got really spoiled when I first started fishing the Hobie events. The first 5 or 6 Hobie events, I swear it was like the first 5 or 6 Hobie events I fished, I finished 8th in every one.
Oh, wow.
First time I didn't finish 8th or top 10 or anything, it bothered me. And even when I was still getting 8th places and cutting checks, it was bothering me, because I was like, you know, man, if I wouldn't have lost that fish, if I wouldn't have had an alternator go out on the second day of the tournament, you know, all this random uncontrollable things. And one of the things I've learned to deal with is, you know, control my controllables, make sure all your rods are good, reels are good, line is great, everything that you can manage, make sure you can handle what you can handle. And, you know, basically just go from there and, you know, try to maintain stability and balance, and, you know, getting into a good, you know, good night's sleep and staying kind of mentally level throughout a tournament, because I would be like this. And if everything's going up, that's when I'd have those crazy days where it seemed like I could just land everything and do everything that I wanted to. But, you know, trying to stay more mentally stable is all, you know, my goal nowadays from, you know, having mentors.
I'm going to follow
Yeah,
that
and
up.
that makes sense too. But I do love the fact that, you know, we have, I hate calling people seniors, because, you know, I'm like, but, you know, you have the Jody Queens, the Matt Balls, you have the guys that kind of bring the folks together. And I love that too, because, you know, there's such a mix and a variety of age. It's kind of funny, because I was in a supervisor's leadership course today, and they were talking about, you know, the diversity in the workforce with all the age, baby boomers all the way down to the millennials and Gen Z, and how everybody's generations are a little bit different too. And that can even come across, you know, you were talking about the young guy with the live scope. It's one of those things where electronics, you know, and gadgets and gizmos, you know, the younger, you know, the newer generations, because, you know, I've got kids that are 30 through, you know, your age, and, you know, in their 20s. And, you know, they were raised by guys like me who, you know, had them playing video games and building computers and using stuff like that. So being around and in, you know, the technology, it's somewhat of a little bit of a gift, you know, to be able to absorb and use that. So I'm guessing your buddy is very good at tuning and understanding what he's seeing on the live scope versus somebody like, you know, other bass pros that might fish for mega bass who are so anti-electronics, you know, because it's just doesn't come to them, you know, where you have guys like Dustin Cannell, he can sit on the front of a boat and look down and understand what he's seeing there. And it can be a difference, you know, and when you're talking about a situation where them fish just ain't up on the bank, and, you know, guys like us who just want to run down a grass line and throw chatterbaits and throw jigs at everything that's sticking up, you know, sometimes you have to go offshore and get those bites. We Jeremy and I and Matt, we had an opportunity to get to know Alex Miller and his mom when we were down at the NC, and he talked really a lot about technology and how you know, you guys really get into using your maps, your Google Maps, your Navionics, you know, every little thing to absorb as much information as you can, especially since you guys travel around and you may be hitting bodies of water that you don't know, but you're still looking for stuff that you're wanting to find and fish. Do you kind of follow and do a lot of that as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of balance, especially when I go somewhere new. It's, I mean, a balance of having Navionics on my phone. It's a balance of looking at Google Maps. It's a balance of checking Apple Maps to see if the lake has been had satellite imagery at a different time of year. Maybe the water's low, maybe the water's high, maybe this gets muddy on this map, but on this map you can see where there might be a spring at. You know, all that stuff kind of plays in. You know, I'm still a power fishing guy at heart, so I don't want to just show up to a lake and revert to live scope immediately. You know, I want to break down things that are more comfortable to me, where I can go do something that I enjoy before I, kind of start going all in and looking offshore for fish.
Yeah.
And let me know that's going to be what I'm doing. I mean, when I go to Cayuga, or, on my big smallmouth Mecca trip that I'm planning before Cayuga, I know when I go to Erie or Ontario or Cayuga, Oneida, whatever, all those places I'm planning on fishing, I know I'm going to show up and just go grab. That's a different ball game. And that's what I've spent all this time in the off season learning, is what everything looks like when I know that's going to be the option when I get to somewhere.
I've got a follow-up question, because you touched on the mental aspect and preparing and doing things that you control. When you talk about the mental aspect of fishing and keeping even, what do you mean, and how do you do it? What do you do to prepare to make sure that you don't get high and those lows? And then I'm going to follow that up with another question about preparing.
So there's a few things. I read a book, I guess over the winter, about, I can't think of the guy's name, the guy that wrote it, but he was the personal trainer for Michael Jordan. And it really kind of put things in perspective to me. Now, I'm not to this level, but he had a very, very set routine for what he did before every game, from relacing shoes to what he ate, down to the minute before games, and he ate the same meal before games. I'm trying to get to the point where I've got a very, very set routine when I'm on the water. I've got a set routine for how I land fish. I basically land fish to my left side every time, so it's comfortable. I'm used to it. I put the fish in the net, net the boat while the fish is still in the net. I don't unhook him. I pull the board out. I get my identifier out. Everything's ready to go. Pop the hook out, set my net to the side, and put the fish on there and start taking pictures. As soon as the fish hits the board, I start taking pictures, and we'll figure out what they look like as I'm getting everything ready. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to set more and more systems in place to where there's less things I have to think about and more things that are just such natural muscle memory that every time that I go on the water, I've got the same routine. I put the boat in the same way. I get to the ramp at the same amount of time before we can pedal off. I want to have as many things possible that are set, and trying to get to where I've got all this stuff where I can start my day the same. And if I start my day the same, then I can control what goes on the water easier, what my snacks are, what my lunch are. Every Saturday night for 2-day tournaments where all the East Tennessee guys are traveling together, every Saturday night after day one of the tournament, we have steak night. That way, if you're having a great day, you have something to celebrate. If you're having a bad day, you have something to look forward to. And it's all about how you're looking through your day, looking towards the end of your day, pacing yourself through it. And it's all a process of trying to keep yourself level. That's one less thing you have to think about when you're on the water. Say you fish till 3 o'clock, at 2:30, you're starting to get a little hungry. I don't want to think about, hey, what am I having for dinner? I want to think about, hey, 2:30, I got 30 minutes left. Sun's heating up this time of year. Where can I go get a big bite? Where can I find active fish this last 30 minutes instead of anything outside? I'm trying to keep myself focused on what's at hand.
And those are the things that set pros apart from weekenders. All right. So the follow-up question to that is, you mentioned having your line and everything on tournament weekends. How often do you respool, or, how often do you check knots during a tournament and things like that? Like, what's your process of line management and to make sure that you minimize those losses?
So I don't really have a set thing to say, hey, this is, I don't go check line every 15 minutes or anything like that. Here's what I can compare what I used to do versus what I do now. Before, even 2 years ago, you're flipping docks, making cast, you make a bad cast. Oh, there's a nick in my line and I'm flipping. I don't think that's going to matter. I'm just flipping close docks, whatever. That nick may never be out by the time you get the bird's nest out. What I've started doing now is one less thing I got to think about. I'll pull all that line out there. retie everything, whether that nick comes out or not. It's completely out. I redo the whole thing. That way I don't have to think about it. And that's not necessarily always respooling, but it's, if I know if I go to make a clear out cast and I feel a nick or something in there that may never come out if I'm just flipping docks or whatever, I get it where it's cut out.
Yep.
And one less thing that I don't even have to worry about, because what happens if I go flipping in a dock and I set the hook on a fish and it goes starting wrapping around pylons, I'm going to be like, oh, I've got to go after that fish. I got to go after that fish, versus knowing, hey, I've got, correct line. I've got good quality stuff on. Everything's good. Then I can be like, you know what? I might just let this fish play and see what it can go without having to go after him immediately, kind of thing. And you can make more kind of neutral decisions that way, kind of clear mind kind of thing. Because you can always, it's always a flip of the coin of what's right and wrong. But I want to put as many odds in my favor to act neutrally, to do things correctly in the moment, versus even if I have the slightest thought of I've got to rush this fish. I did that exact same thing at Santee 2 years ago in the same area that I just cut 2 checks in this past weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get this fish in. And I lost my net. And instead of going and buying a makeshift net for the weekend, I was like, I'm just going to land everything by hand. And I went to land that fish by hand and was like, oh, it's barely hooked. I tried to boat flip probably a 23 or 24 inch fish and it broke off because I was being irresponsible and wasn't following my pattern that I've had and my system that I've had for like 6 years. I lost a net, and instead of taking the time, going and getting one, borrowing one, figure something out, I got lazy. And that's really what it boils down to, is you never want to be lazy.
That's just a great response to all that. The only reason I asked that was I've watched Brent Ayler, and he's really very peculiar about it. Every time he lands a fish, every time I've watched him and they've had a camera in his boat, every time he lands a fish, he checks a good 15, 20 inches of his line through his mouth. And if he feels anything, boom, he's cutting and retying. And he's on a, like we're all on time limits in these tournaments.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care. He's cutting and retying. And I just didn't know, because I don't do that. I'm not one of those guys that.
I noticed myself checking it with crankbaits a lot more often. Anything that I know is hitting a lot of stuff. When I'm flipping, I notice it a lot. When I'm cranking, I check it a lot more, just because I know if when I'm cranking 9 times out of 10, I'm just grinding rocks, right? I mean, you're just, semi-mindlessly just going and cranking and going and cranking, casting, cranking and reeling. And, that's one of those things where I've made it a point of doing that and checking and checking and checking. But I mean, I don't really have a set system. When I pop a bait out, I'll pull it up, and a lot of times I'll look at it, spinner bait, flipping, whatever. If I'm adjusting a bait, tuning a bait, buzz bait, whatever, and I'm tuning it back, I'll basically just grab it and do one of these, and just, basically whatever amount of line that I can reach with my fingers right there, one, kind of your high percentage rough area, and I'll just check it real quick and toss the bait back in the water, and we're kind of good to go.
Now, I found it interesting because you were talking about the book, and somebody asked if it was the Relentless from Good to Great to Unstoppable.
That sounds correct. I'm a big AirPod guy, and I'm alone at work a lot. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I don't know what Relentless, Unstoppable. It's something along those lines.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think somebody was interested in what you're saying. So the funny thing is, and I think a lot of people notice this over time too, but it's one of those things where, as you get older, and you'll learn this as you go too, but you might be onto something early too. A lot of the times, and people don't understand this, it's like, I get asked, how do I catch a fish in the last minute of the last hour? And it happens more often than not. And, some people don't, maybe haven't realized, but it's a lot of times it's confidence, but it's also about having that positive mental attitude. It's not like you're willing yourself to catch that fish, but just to give you a funny story, I qualified for the NC on the last day of Mayhem with a last minute 19-inch fish that I needed to be in that percentage to be able to qualify. And then my brother did it with the sun going down that same day.
I watched
Then
you catch that fish.
at the NC, at the end of day 2, after skunking on day 1, catching a fish with literally minutes to go, that put me in literally the 100th spot to get what I've always coveted, which is that green board back there. You know, it's not giving up. It's not having negative thoughts. It's being positive about it. You know, you hear a lot of, talk about, toxic stuff in the sport these days, but I like getting past all that because I can talk and do with anybody. And I think a lot of people, if you keep a positive mindset, then better things happen. No, you're not always going to win. You're not always going to catch that fish you need. I've never won except for one Bass Club tournament in 1999 that happened to be the classic. That's the only tournament I've ever won. I've placed back when we were boat fishing. I try to catch 5 when we fish our local derbs. I'm just doing this for fun and mostly to spread because I love it. I love the community. And I tell a lot of people, while we're doing a lot of things online to teach people how, the goal is to get them to go fish with the local club or in the local derb so they can meet other folks. And, for me up here in Indiana, just that ability to go fish those local things, I get to know guys like Brian Sparks, Glenn Landstrom, Mike Elsey. We've met all these guys that we never would have met otherwise that are doing the kind of like you're doing, traveling around. We're doing the KFL kind of thing, but still hitting all these big series that are out there. But it's cool because, like you said, you look forward to that steak dinner. Sometimes, just do it at a local derb where you get together and have that thing afterwards. That's still something to look forward to. And then you're meeting other people who share the same passion and love that you have for this sport while we're all growing the sport. But I'll tell you what, I am not going to lie. When I first got started, I was just out there fishing, but the more people I met, I have never seen a community like I have in the kayak world. Well, they will help you and bring you along. You go to a lake you've never been to. It's, hey, this is kind of what works around here. And they're not afraid to share. It's so funny because we laughed last year, Glenn Landstrom on this one lake that's like the closest to me. And I was like, man, I should be able to smoke him on it. He kills us. He catches like 100 fish. We catch like 5. But he literally made a video of his, tournament there. And he's like, all right, boys, here's the juice. Take what I'm showing you and go learn something from it. And we did. But just the fact that, guys like that would do stuff like that for us that are brand new into the whole kayak derby thing, it's really cool. So, I mean, I love the fact that we're talking about what you took out of that book was positive, preparing. And I'm like you. I launch my boat the same way. I prepare my stuff the same way. I'm an old broken fart, and I have people all the time come up, and it's like, hey, man, can I help you load and this and that? I was like, I appreciate your offer, because, they see me, and it's like, this guy can barely walk, but it's like, I have a complete system on how I do this. If I don't do it the way I always do it, then I forget something,
No, it's because he's a grumpy old man, Jordan. Don't let him lie to you.
Don't touch my stuff. But I'm the same way you are. I land the fish on the same side, everything comes over to my right because that's where I put the net. I scoop, I put the fish on the leash, I prepare, I set it up, it's routine. And like you said, that's what kind of helps you learn, not to make mistakes. And then a lot of the judges we have, especially in these lower ones, it's cool that they will like, hey, you took a picture of the fish, but its mouth was a little bit open. Do you have another one that you could resubmit so you don't get that 1/4 inch deduction? It's just those funny things that we're all in it to, there's a check involved. I say I'm making donations to learn, but that's fine. But it's cool the community that we have that's like that, where it doesn't matter where you go in the country, somebody will be like, hey, come go fish with us, and they'll take you out and just take you around and kind of show you all about it too. So that's one thing I really love about this sport that we're in.
So I got a question for you, Jordan, on the upper end side of the fishing for you guys that are pros. I have noticed, and I've only had a kayak for a year, Last year was my first year kayak fishing. How unbelievably, like JT was talking about, the community is it as cutthroat for you guys, or are you just as friendly in those tournaments and at that level, or is it still just as friendly all the time?
It has its moments, honestly. I mean, you hear these stories of all the different things that, that can happen, has happened, whatever. But I mean, you could ask anybody that was at Santee Cooper when we were at check-in, I probably walked up and gave, like a half hug or whatever to, high five, handshake, whatever, bro hug, to probably, I don't know, 15 people. I mean, and there's 180 people there, and I probably gave some sort of embrace more than a fist pump to probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 people. I don't think you have that anywhere. I mean, there were guys at Santee that I haven't seen in, 8-9 months, and I was happy to see them. I don't walk into those, venues for board check and go, man, I hope there ain't anything sitting in my boat that somebody's going to see. I'm walking in there going, man, I can't wait to see Russell or Twiggy or Kittrell or whoever, you name it, all the guys that I don't get to see. Q, I haven't seen Q in like a year. It's all those guys that, you go a long time without seeing. I look forward when I go in there. I'm looking to see who signed up for events. Be like, oh man, I get to see so-and-so when I go to South Carolina. I get to see, man, I can't wait for our Susky event. Think of all those guys from up in the Northeast that I haven't seen in a while. It's way more of that for me than it is, oh man, look at so-and-so when we go there. It's just, that's not to say that there's not, groups of friends that are balled up. I mean, that's just natural kind of the way it goes. But, you walk up to those people, and if you only know a couple of the 10 people there, well, guess what? You probably just made 8 more friends when you just walk.
Right. No, what I meant was like in the boating world, they're going to hide stuff on their decks. They're not going to, there is zero sharing or helping. I mean, not necessarily helping. If somebody's in danger, yes, they're going to help. But I'm saying there's not going to be, hey, I'm catching them on a square bill off of points. There's none of that.
Oh,
and in kayak fishing, I have seen that there is that. I just ran into 3 guys last night, the other night, that I had never met. Only seen one guy's name on Facebook, and we were all fishing the same small pond, and nobody got in their way. Hey, how you doing? What are you catching them on? I said, I haven't had a bite, right? So they didn't have any either. So but it's just been more of a community, I think. And I fished bass boats just like JT did, but I was back when I was a kid, and it was a small club, and I never really got into it. But my cousin was on the Red Man Trail, and he was like, I even asked him, hey, where do you fish on Monroe? Yeah, well, I go over here. And he just gives me a general direction. I'm his freaking cousin.
Yeah.
So
it's like you're asking for waypoints or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's what I'd want, but
I get it. I mean, the last boat tournament I fished, that was with somebody else in their boat. We pull up. When I met the guy at his house, he had rods sitting out that I was kind of looking at him, and I was like, okay, that's a little strange. We get there, everybody's sitting around talking. You have 2 or 3 people that you're friends with out of 50 people there, and you don't talk to anybody else. You don't even hardly wave to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And you get on the water, and as you're sitting there waiting for them to either call a boat number or whatever, my buddy goes in there and starts pulling out different rods out of his rod locker and putting everything that was on the boat in rod locker. And he just basically just did a flip flop of what was in the rod and out the rod locker. And I'm sitting there just the whole time going, you got to be kidding me. It's like, I knew we kind of weren't going to throw what was sitting out there, but at the same time, it's like, man, that was a lot of crap. Like, to me, the way I look at it is, hypothetically said he had a purple crankbait sitting up on the boat. We were planning on throwing black and chartreuse. You know what? Somebody might go throw a purple crankbait and wax them, and then we just did reverse psychology on ourselves.
Oh, what? How many rods do you take on a normal tournament day? out on your yak?
Normal tournament day, I think I've pretty much had 8 for everything this year. I get about 6 bait casters and 2 spinning rods, give or take. If I'm practicing for a tournament, I normally have 10. That's basically, 6 in the rod tubes, 1 in my hand, and a couple spinning rods sitting in the back. I kind of always carry 1 or 2 spinning rods just in case some nonsense hits the fan when we're out fishing a tournament, because we go to so many pressure fisheries. But as you can tell, heavy bait caster and it's 8 to 10 pretty much all the time. I don't think I ever really go under 8 because I'm so comfortable with 8. The only time I really go under 8 is if I'm on the local river at the house and I can basically tell you exactly where we're going to catch fish based on the amount of water running. And I still take 6 because that is like, I feel naked without 6. So we got to have at least 6 rods in the boat because that's how many Hobie put in the boat. So by George.
So what are those techniques?
I was gonna say, what's on those 6 rods?
Oh, for the river? I can't tell you guys that.
That's fair.
I'm still a bass boater at heart, right?
No.
That's how I grew up.
Yep, that's fair.
But
So with your Hobie, tell us about your setup, because a lot of people, they assume kayak and it's like, oh, we're just all paddling out there, which there are those that still do. But Matt's one of them. Kentucky Lake for the NC last year with the winter and winds, he's out there paddling. And, you talk about that was true diehard tradition. But tell us about how you have your yak set up. What's your kind of layout and, what do you kind of run on it?
So, basically, if it's like we're going to Hartwell next, right? So Hartwell's a bass event. We can use motors. I'm going to have my NK 300 rigged up by then. I'm going to have a MillerTech lithium battery, 36 volt, 60 amp hour. Haven't even decided where I'm going to put it yet. The plan is to get either put it in my H crate. I might have to get a bigger crate and go with the black pack, the giant black pack. Like I said, I just got it in and since I've had it in, I've basically been gone the entire time, and I've worked 2 12-hour days in the last 2 days. So I haven't even unboxed my motor. I've had it over a week, if that tells you anything.
Okay.
But basically, NK 300 in the back. No power pole, not a big power pole guy. I've had them, just was not personally a fan. I know guys that love them and swear by them, just not my personal thing. MillerTech 36 volt battery, probably in the back because I've got my 12 volt battery for my live scope up front in the front hatch.
Okay.
And I've got a sniper pole for the live scope that's mounted on the left side of my boat. Running a camo, regular green camo Hobie PA14 180. I love the 180 drive. It's not to say I don't like the 360 drive. Just 180 drive is, what I like. I'm just kind of a basic, right? I like what I like. I don't have to have fancy things. New this year, I'm running a bunch of Lew's rods and reels. For everybody that was on social media literally right before, I posted a funny reel right before I got on this, and I literally had to put do not disturb on my phone because people were blowing me up because they thought it was funny, and they're giving me crap about it, which is, I don't care. I'm all videos.
So anyway. Tell us about. I saw your post, your dump of all your stuff you got in from Lew's. Now Matt and I are both Lew's VIPs as well, so we work with Tom, and he's been a fan of the show and hooked us up. Shoot, are we in the 2nd year being partnered with Lew's now? So. I'm sitting here talking with a bunch of Strike King tungsten jigs and the new Scounds bugs that just came out. So
giant box here. I don't even know if y'all can see that. That's just like chock full of. I'm about to drop it, but y'all can see it's sitting on the chair that I upgraded. And got me a fancy new chair here, but I'm about to lose the camera now.
And now JT done messed up the show.
We done messed on.
So tell us about what rods and reels you got in. That's for.
So most of my new Lew's stuff is Team Lew's Signature Series. I think basically, it's a majority of that. awesome black and chrome. They're really, really sharp rods. They're super, super light. I think every single fish I caught at Santee was on a Signature Series rod and reel. The Thunder Cricket I caught my fish on first thing in the morning was obviously on the Thunder Cricket rod and reel. You know what? I can probably show you. Hold, please. We're gonna put a hold. We're just gonna hold right there because I had everything close. I see you looking at rods and reels. I figured I might as well, do that. So basically everything I've got is, Blues Signature Series. Got my fancy rod gloves on there. I ain't even sponsored by Rod Gloves. I just like these things. I got like 15 of those things the other day.
Which reel is that?
So that's,
oh my God, that's the tier 1.
Yeah. Here we go. Y'all can kind of see it. Man, that's a sharp reel.
Oh, I'm jealous.
On their website that a portion of that money goes to charity, I think.
Yeah, veterans, yeah.
Yeah, veterans. So it's a sharp reel. It was, in a solid price point. It's a good looking reel. Casts the camera a long way. I like the grips on it. I like the paddles are probably my favorite. And obviously, which y'all can kind of see here, which y'all know, but everybody at home might. Look at that fancy little hook holder right there.
That is one of the coolest things that nobody else has done that I thought I gave Lou's great praise for, because I've loved their Pro SP for skipping pitching. I just picked up this. Well, I got this one from Tom while I was down there, the new custom light. Yeah. But after putting my hands on the rod while I was down there talking to him, I had to order one. But I think once I beat this up, this is literally, I think, the best Lou's rod Lou's has ever made. But the new Win custom grips, I mean, I'm gonna go beat this up and put it against some of the other stuff that I play with as well. But I was super impressed with this rod. So I get the feeling I'm gonna have some more of these. And it's, and a lot of the folks here know that I'm a Dobbins guy, because obviously Dobbins, for us, they offer veterans 30% discount. Plus, I love their warranty that lasts forever. But I've been a big fan of Lou's reels for a long time. Some of the rods I really didn't care for, but I told Tom when I got my hands on this one and I started doing the bend test, and I'm sitting there holding it with the tip right here and my other finger right here, because some of the lower end Lou's, those can snap because they're, it's a price point when you're buying combos. But these for tournaments, I'm really looking forward to going out and throwing that this weekend. That's for sure.
That's awesome. You're using those tier 1 reels. So basically, to me, I think they've taken the KVD reel, rebranded them, repainted them, made them look a little different, added some things. But I've got a KVD reel, and at the price point, for the price, I don't think there's a better bait caster that you can buy for $150. I mean,
yeah.
Well, and I talked to Jamie Caldwell, because he's the one that works with Lou's as their brand ambassador for the American Hero program, and he's the one who made them kind of up the game, because he uses those to fish in his, I think he's in the Elite Series tournaments, and so he can't be out there with the last American Heroes were good to get people started, but they had to up the game a little bit too. Jeremy's wanting to know if that's a combo I get to use Saturday. No, bro, you bring your own.
So what's year's worth of fishing? that was something that I kind of weighed out when I was getting combos and stuff and trying to pair everything up. Was I'm going to fish 50 tournaments this year, and it's not going to be my first year fishing 50 tournaments. It's probably, if you average the last 3 years out, counting this one, I'll probably fish 145 to 150 tournaments in the last 3 years, right? So I'm going to have something that will literally, and I'm ahead of the curve. I've fished more tournaments than there are weeks in the year so far, right? How does that? I double up anytime I'm in town, fish the big one and the local one. It's a blast. I love it, right? But that's a different part of the story, right? So I'm going to fish as many tournaments as possible in a year, and anybody that knows me knows that half the time my goal when I'm out on the water is just make more casts than everybody else. Yeah. And that's my motto from the start. When I was one of the first people in East Tennessee that had a Hobie, I could cover more water and make more casts than everybody else, and I just run into more fish. and as the competition kind of gets tighter and tighter and tighter, I still want to use that to my advantage of being efficient when I'm on the water. So messing with things is not an option to me. So I want to have something that lasts a whole season that I don't have to mess with, and that's one of my favorite things when I was rigging all those up. Put line on them, twist the dial on the side to 7 or 8, adjust the spool tension knob on the side, and I was good to go. No taking
Yep.
sides off and flipping with different things on the inside and switching stuff. Half the time my fat fingers, I'd flip one of them things on some of them other reels, and I'd start losing pieces in the water.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had to catch a fish and you only had one bait to tie on, what's it gonna be?
Ooh,
Any like your like a choice. I like just what is your one go-to confidence bait? If you've got to catch a fish, what are you throwing?
if I've got to catch a fish, probably just a 3/8 ounce tungsten, a 3/0 hook, and a 4-inch black and blue rage bug.
So you're throwing a soft plastic, slow presentation Texas rigging.
Yeah, I can do so much with that. I can like swim it. I've caught a bunch of fish, different lakes that that have flooded, brush and things, where I can basically take that and throw it like a swim jig and get the same kind of bites, but it's a little more weedless. It looks a little different. So I think you get some other bites from pressured fish. I can go flip cypress trees at Santee Cooper all day and do that. I can basically bed fish with it. I can do basically anything I want to do with, a rage bug on a Texas rig and, be fairly comfortable because I've done a bunch of different things with it.
Yep.
I do love the rage bug.
Yeah.
It's a good looking bait. It really is.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite trailers to put on, a Thunder Cricket, or, even when I was with Z-Man, I've basically put a rage bug on basically all of my bladed jigs for the last, few years. It started out as a flipping bait, and it progressed to one of those days where I was catching fish really quickly. They would either hit it on the fall, or I'd flip it in and start reeling it, and they'd eat it on the return as I'm reeling it in. So now I started using it as a sole swim, basically using it as a swim jig on a Texas rig. And then I was like, man, if they eat this thing that good just because the tails are that nice, I need to put this on, spinner baits and buzz baits and Thunder Cricket.
I love the Okeechobee craw color in it too. It just the size of it and the way when they blend those colors, it looks so good. I've got like 2 packs of those, and I'm gonna get.
And I love that thing too, because I can slide the peg down if I want to skip it under overhanging branches or under docks, easy peasy. If I want it to flow a little freer, I can just slide the bobber stop up a little bit more. It's such a versatile, it's a do everything kind of thing. Because like you said, you can swim it, hop it, bounce it, skip it, drag it like a jig. I mean, it just works everywhere. So where do you see the sport going in the next 10 years? Because we've had such phenomenal growth. And do you think we're going to see more trails, less trails, things getting combined? Where do you kind of see the sport going?
If you'd asked me this, basically even last year, the answer would be different than what my answer is now. If you asked me 5 years ago, that answer is obviously completely different. This is my 10th year of fishing kayak tournaments. This fall will be 10 years of kayak tournaments, right? So, the amount of just unbelievable growth, both in the amount of people fishing, the amount of, quote unquote, professional level things that are out there. 10 years from now, there's probably going to be a completely different trail that has come out that no one's probably ever heard of. And now probably is no one, and it's not something that I, think that there's coming or have heard a rumor of. I would tell you, I have no idea. I would say in 10 years from now, there is probably some sort of, XYZ, because everything's got, your letter initiatives to stand for something like BASS and the B.A.S.S and KBF. There's probably some sort of other, alphabetical, something that
I could
exists.
see Major League Fishing getting into something like this
Yeah.
eventually. They've got such deep pockets in their upper pool. I could easily see them becoming a player someday.
Somebody at the Classic told me, and this really kind of opened my eyes of where we're at. So to me, this is like as good as it's ever been. We're top tier. We're climbing the mountain, right? And at some point, you got to look around and be like, man, look where we're at. It was told to me by somebody that I don't even think was even a kayak fishing insider. I think they were kind of outside just fishing industry in general. They kind of looked at it and were like, kayak fishing is a toddler in the grand scheme of things. It's basically a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
What happens in the next year or so is, really, really important to, growth in the future. And basically everything that we've done in the last 10, 15 years is this much when it really boils down to what we've done. We're basically just sprouting, just growing out of the ground. We're fingerlings in a fish aspect, right? We're gonna tie everything back to fish. We're fingerlings right now, right? So we're basically just now getting released in a stocking program. We basically grew up in our own little hatchery over here. Now we're basically getting released out into the wild with having kayak its own tagline on Bassmaster on the website. Now we've got a little green kayak thing now, which is awesome. Now open the door to a whole nother process. And to look at that and finally realize, hey, we're this far along in the grand scheme of things, and looking at all the options we have. It's there's no telling what could happen in 10 years. I just want to be a part of it. That's all I know. I want to be. I want to be part of it. Other than that, y'all's guess is as good as mine.
What?
My mama's guess is probably as good as mine on what's going to happen from 10 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I imagine that the sponsorships will get a little better, a little bigger. People will start getting more. I mean, for right now, there's mostly, you're going to get the Dakota Lithiums and the major lithium battery companies because, it's okay in a boat, but really in a kayak, it's really important. Weight management's super important, right? So I just think that those opportunities for you guys, not the average guy, but your opportunities of making money aside from winning checks and promoting their gear is going to open up more with sponsorship deals.
What it really boils down to is who can become financially more stable from all of the off the water stuff, because it doesn't matter who you are. If you fish tournaments long enough, you're not gonna make money fishing tournaments. It costs so much money to do this. And even, people give me a hard time about going places and sleeping in my truck. And people have even said, afterwards when I'm doing interviews and stuff, they're like, man, don't say you're sleeping in your truck, because, these visit so-and-so, whatever the tourism boards are going to see that and be like, man, that guy that won a tournament, how many other people are sleeping in their truck? And it's like, man, if I'm being straightforward and honest, I'm obviously, sleeping in my truck for some of these events. And hopefully, I hope somebody listens to that and goes, man, this guy is after it hard enough where he's going to sleep in his truck, all 6'1", 250 pounds, 260 pounds, sleeping in the back seat of his truck. He must be going after it pretty hardcore. And B, maybe we should put some more funds that somebody wants to do that badly, that they're going to drive somewhere in 80-degree heat or 20 degrees outside, like it was that morning when I woke up, and they're sleeping in their truck. Maybe we should put some money towards that. So these guys are going crazy. These guys are after it. They're putting a lot of money. They're investing time and money and energy into something. Maybe we should look at, allocating more sponsorship dollars in that. It doesn't matter what the company is if they see that.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think
a lot of people just see the checks and thinking, oh man, these guys are making loot.
There's
that
ROI in kayak fishing. I mean, if you compare apples to apples for entry fees and money won, there's not a lot of money being dispersed in other places, like kind of semi-professional bass boat stuff where you would qualify and do those things.
You just got called the Gerald Swindell of kayak fishing.
he's one of my favorite people. I've met him twice, I guess, and the first time I ever met him, he was just as fantastic in person as he is on Instagram and that kind of stuff.
His Instagram is a good follow.
Impressed. Yeah.
His Instagram is a good follow. Oh, Lulu, don't get Lulu fired up.
But that's one of the reasons really why I wanted to have you on too, because I think, like, again, you get positive impact people, into the sport, and that really says a lot of, because what a lot of people don't realize, even when they say you're out bashing somebody so and so and whatnot, these companies are looking at that. And sometimes, that can have a negative impact on the whole community. And it was never known because some company decided to not get involved into something with sponsoring people, or, maybe hosting their own events or whatever. So the fact, like you said, coming out, being positive influence, being, promoting the sport, being good stewards of the sport, because, we all have tough days. We all get mad. We all, there's Pat, the guys, Jeremy Matt will tell you, when I skunked that first day, I'm out here throwing a hissy fit because I'm some damn YouTuber and I just had the worst day of fishing ever. And I had to get past that. And
Trust me, in there.
And I'll tell you, besides these two that I had to apologize to, I was I kind of was, crying on the shoulder of Christine Fisher that night. And it's like, I had no idea until she released her videos that, like, her, I think her live scope broke down or something was going on with her stuff. And I'm like, she's out here fishing for a check. And I'm out here crying because I couldn't catch a damn fish. And, but she was like, just offered the best words and just go out and do your thing, leave it out, just go fishing and have fun. And then the next day I had the best day ever. So it's funny how sometimes you have to eat your own words and, just be positive, be a good focus, and go out and have a good.
There's been a lot of time. Yeah, there's been a lot of times where I fished events and had such high expectations for an event, whether it's local, regional, national, where, things don't go my way. I'll get mad. I want to leave. I mean, I don't know how many times I've got mad during a tournament. It's like, you know what? Y'all can have this. I'm going home. I'm selling my crap and I'm done, right? And you go through that thought process, and it's, it's fulfilling for about that long, and you basically get back to the house or get back home from a trip or whatever else, and you feel like a jackwagon because of all the things you thought, said, did, getting mad, tossing stuff around, and it's fulfilling for that long. And, one of the most frustrating days I think I ever had on the water was at Harris Chain when I was right beside Ewing, when he absolutely wrecked him. I mean, I was, we were crossing lines at that point, casting at the same grass mat because the wind was behind us. That was the only way to fish it. And he wrecked him like 108 inches or something like that. I had like 70 something. And I was like, dude, this is the worst day I've ever had, right? I'm mad. I didn't even fish day 2. I was still mad. And, one of the things I did after I got off the water that day, and one of the things that, I appreciate now more than when I did it, because after we got off the water, Ewing called me and he's like, man, he goes, that was the best day I've ever, one of the best days I've ever had on the water, and B, one of the stupidest, craziest days I've ever on the water. Because, the difference in how we were approaching that grass mat was just so minutely different, which caused those bite differences. And I told him, I was like, look, man, I was like, if you need anything, I hope you win the tournament. I gave him all the trailers I had that we were both throwing the exact same bladed jig and the exact same trailer. And I gave him the rest of those trailers. And, that was the one thing that I could appreciate from that. And I think that I kind of had to hit a hard reset from Florida, right? Because it made me think about how differently I appreciated myself handling that versus tournaments in the past where, I might break a rod or something because I get so mad and it doesn't do me any good. Now I'm down a rod. Now I'm mad. Now I got to pay for something else. Now I look like an idiot to somebody else. And, it is going forward. I realized how much, more of a positive impact that's made, that I can actually help people and do something like that and not handle it the way that I've handled it. And that's both a maturity thing that I've, had to, grow up and responsibly, and, be just, like we were saying, wanting to be more of a steward of the sport, and talking to people that I had disagreements with 3 years ago that I wouldn't talk to for 3 years at these tournaments. And it's all of those little things that are, at the end of the day, what I want to, move forward, and how I want to see myself in 10 years. Like, going back to that question, I don't want to be one of those people that's, he's in a clique with so-and-so or whatever. I want to show up and fish and be one of those guys that's here, like, basically like the Gerald Swindle. I want to, have that kind of, awesome following where it's positive mental attitude. Somebody's going to get a laugh when they come to something and look at me doing, and every now and then catch some fish, hopefully, right?
That's why I stream on Twitch. Every now and then I catch a fish, every now and then. But I had, when I first started last year, and I hadn't fished for 20 years at least, and I got the kayak, got out on water, and I fished my very first actual tournament, like paid tournament, where I could win a check with him early in the spring. And I tried to live stream it, and I was trying to do too much, and I got frustrated and threw a hissy fit on the water live on stream, looked like a jackwagon. And then I did it again a little bit later in the year, and I realized, and I'm 52, okay, throwing a hissy fit like a 10-year-old. And I realized I can't be that person. I'm trying to represent and help spread the word about mental health, and I've got to be a better person. So now I go out. I don't care if I get a bite. I don't care what happens. I don't care if I win. I don't care if I post fish. I'm just out having a good time and looking at it that way. And if I catch a fish, that's just a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that I don't want to catch fish. All right. Trust me. And I want to catch bigs, right? I want to catch, I have never caught a 20-inch fish at all. I want to put a 20-inch fish on the board. I've got that goal. I've got goals, but I'm just approaching it different now. And it's cool to hear you say that coming in at such a young age, because if you can keep that attitude for the rest of your life, you'll be a phenomenal person. And I mean, seriously, I've not always been that way. So I'm just trying to, you always, like you said, keep learning. So
awesome. Jordan, man, I tell you what,
that's probably, I know, and most people know. And it literally, like, it's not one of those things. It's like, oh man, I didn't do well in this tournament. It's like, oh no, like, I go into every tournament like, I want to win this thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm hyper competitive, whether it's, playing games on my phone with my buddies at work, and you can ask them. I got to be the best at everything I do, and I think that's, just, competitive nature that my dad distilled in me when we were, I was growing up playing baseball and everything else. I want to be the best at everything I do, and it's, I don't ever want to get away from that. I just want to be the best, but I want to be the best on and off the water. I want to do everything right. I want to do it and do what I want to do, and I want to do it the right way.
That's good. It's good to hear. I think you got a good head on your soldiers, and I think you got a bright future ahead of you too. It was fun meeting you down at the Classic, finally. And for me, I'm just out there playing starstruck guy, because I love this sport, and so I've got to where I've started following various folks, just like we would if we're watching MLF or bass events. I get the same way with the kayak anglers that I watch and respect. I've meeting and talking to Russ and several people after when we were down at the NC, because we haven't gone out and done any like a Hobies or any of those, and like they haven't brought, there's no Bass Nation stuff up here yet. I'm betting we'll see a club or something start up sooner or later, because the more people we see that are walking across the stage and doing stuff like that. But we'll travel around our state, but we rarely get out. But seeing you guys doing this kind of stuff too, and knowing that it's if we wanted to go do something like that, all of you guys at your level are so approachable and easy to talk to that I would never have a second thought about eventually going to fishing like a KBF trail or going to one of the B.A.S.S events down in Tennessee or someplace, because I got family down there too, and around Knoxville and around Humboldt and, and other places. And so I need to get off my butt, because us old farts, we spend all our time working instead of fishing as much as possible. But watching you guys go through and do what you do, it's really cool. And we'll just sit, me, Matt, and Jeremy will sit there in a Facebook chat, watching the leaderboards from whatever events you guys are fishing. Just, oh my God, so-and-so just did this.
Well,
like I literally thought Russ was going to win this last one. And then the dude come flying in out of nowhere and past him. And I'm like, how do you have 520s? And for us, we might fish and catch a 20 once a year. And these guys are just, laying the wood on them. But it's a difference between fishing up here in Indiana and a little farther south too. But I tell you what, you guys really make it fun to watch too. So I mean, there's
a special place that, AJ did a fantastic job of where we've started off our season at with having an event on the Harris chain and having, unbelievable fish down there, having been at Caddo, which, I've never seen the likes of Caddo with so many people catching really quality fish, both days, all through practice. It was absurd. And then to go to Santee Cooper and somebody drops 100 inches and doesn't even get in the top 3 to qualify for TC, just nuts, right? That's nuts.
Yeah.
Dude, if I dropped 100 inches at any point, even a month long, year long, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm being serious.
Yeah. And it's like we work just to make it maybe, in the upper 90s is the most I've ever gotten a month long.
I haven't even broken 90 in a month long yet. 86.75 is my best.
Yeah, that was my second time I've had, maybe third time I've had 94 3/4. I've never busted 95 in a tournament. And I had 94 3/4 on a shootout and finished 10th. So it's literally my personal best tournament limit that I've had multiple times and finished 10th in an event. And it's, the only thing to say is, man, Santee Cooper is impressive, and man, the guys we're fishing against are incredible.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you the same thing JT just said. It's been enjoyable. If you guys don't, some of the people in the chat have the app, but if you've got Fishing Chaos or Tourney X, if you guys are actually uploading your fish and not holding them, because, it's cool to watch the leaderboards and watch you guys post fish.
Yeah.
But when they shut it off at the end of the day, oh my gosh, you got to wait. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there waiting.
There's not too many times I've sat at home and watched, just watched the leaderboard and have it turn off. But I don't know how many times I've had all my fish uploaded and the leaderboard turn off, and I'm sitting here like this. I pop my fingernails bad, and it gets way worse when they turn that leaderboard off.
Do you look at it during the day?
I try not to, but I do.
Okay. Because like in MLF, they all say, go ahead. Like in MLF, they all say that score tracker it helps them.
Yeah. I try to get my 5 fish and then submit them all. Places like Santee Cooper, where I'm basically looking for service all day. Caddo is kind of the same way. Anywhere where I have questionable service, I will submit as I go purposely, just to see if I can find little hot spots within, an area that doesn't have great service. But, if we're fishing a tournament here in Knoxville and I've got fairly decent service, I'll basically catch my 5 fish and then upload the fish. And then, I'll basically just kind of cull as I go. I don't want to sit there and, do it one at a time. If I don't have to, I can basically just, eat a snack and try to, hit a minor reset button. And that's part of trying to keep level head kind of thing. So I can, post all 5 of my fish fairly quickly and get a snack at the same time. I'm trying to be more efficient that way.
So then what's your process of, like, obviously you catch more than 5 fish in a tournament, of knowing which 5 fish to submit?
So basically, one of the things I do is so as soon as I put the fish on the board, no matter what it looks like, I just start taking taking pictures as soon as it's on there, or mouth open, whatever, because you don't want that fish to flop. And most of the time it'll flop as soon as you put it on the board. As soon as I put it on the board, I'll start taking pictures, and then I'll start, playing with mouths and tails and all that, depending on what trail we're in and all that kind of hand placement rule stuff. The way I look at it is I take a, what was traditionally like, what we call it a cast level photo, which is our ruling body of Tennessee, which is our 10 clubs. And that's basically, everybody has to have mouth closed, right? So obviously that's the first thing. and then I take a picture of somewhere where my hand's just on the fish in a general location. And then I take a Hobie quality photo, which is every possible 1/4 inch I can get out where I'm, slightly manipulating the tail or whatever else, and I can get a picture out of it. And then I take what used to be called, well, Bass was kind of doing it for a while, but definitely what we used to call, it still is, NACA, North Alabama Kayak Anglers. They used to be hands off the fish. And to take, and you can look and see the picture from my big fish at Gunnersville for the Bassmaster event on Gunnersville, the Bassmaster Open. You can kind of see where I've got my hand coming back off the fish as I took a picture, and somebody was like, does he have to have his hand there off the fish? And I was basically just, no, but I knew where my hand was. It was too far down on the tail, where I was basically going from a Hobie picture to a Bass approved picture where I didn't have my hand past the caudal fin or whichever fin.
The dorsal fin. Yeah. The last fin. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was moving my hand away. And back in the day, I still got this crazy habit where we used to write Sharpie on our hands for our events before they gave identifiers out and all that. And even still in our Thursday night, weeknight tournament, we have a weeknight kayak tournament here on Loudon. We'll show up and we'll get a Sharpie and we'll write a code on our hand. And I've still got this crazy habit a lot of times in pictures, whereas I move my hand off the fish, I, basically make a fist and you can see whatever's written on my hand right there as I bring it up closer towards the camera and it's away from the fish too. So that's kind of my, process of getting a picture. And then whenever I get all those pictures out, I'll lean my camera forward and take a picture of the front of my boat.
Okay,
and
so you delineate.
So you're building a wall.
Fish separation, fish from your next fish.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so Fluke Master says, he takes a picture of his hand. That's fish number 1, fish number 2, 3, right? So he just does that.
It's all fun and games till after you catch 5, and then you're trying to figure out, we got.
Well, yeah. Some of us don't have that problem, Jordan. Some of us might not ever catch 5, so it works. But no, I do like the idea of so just little things like that of you've got a process on how you take your pictures, right? Like I have a process where it's not about, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And it doesn't always work out, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to hold my phone up. I'm going to take the picture. Then I'll reattach the fish to the leash, put it back in the water, make sure that my pictures are okay, right? Because I'm still new. I just want to make sure I got a good picture. And then I say goodbye to the fish, right? So little things like that. It's just all different stuff.
Yeah, I'm still surprised at the number of people, even on your level, that don't know that you can, if you've got an Android phone, that you can give it a voice command to take the picture, because they'll see some of my videos where I'm just holding my camera up and saying shoot. And then that way I'm not trying to sit there with wet fingers and, closing the app and, iPhone have all kinds of goofy stuff going on.
If you take your iPhone and have the camera pulled up, you can hit the volume down. I think it is.
Yeah.
Maybe both of them, but I know volume down because it's right where my thumb is always at. So I can basically hit the camera with my pointer finger, or I can just hit the volume down. That way, if it's raining or whatever, my hands are covered in fish slime. I can literally just hit a solid button on the side and it'll take a picture.
Here's one problem I don't like about my iPhone. It won't take the picture to where when it uploads, it puts it sideways. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it flips it.
And
you don't care.
Takes it as however it takes it. I send them however they get. However it takes is however it goes.
That drives me nuts.
They can turn it in the tool and do what they need to do. Yeah.
I had a buddy that got DQ'd from a tournament because he was literally turning his fish. He was going through and cropping them and turning them. And when he was submitting his fish, it showed his fish were altered. So he got fish DQ'd, and it was past the time when everybody realized it. So I've always been paranoid. I send them. I don't care if it's backwards, side to side, and crisscross, cattywampus, whatever. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to be respectful of your time. I really, really thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure.
It really
Man,
has.
I told you, because I kind of told Tom, I was like, you need to highlight this guy. We need a Strike King and Lose needs a kayak page for the Bass Pros, because you got guys like this out there. They're going to be blazing a trail, and I bet they get around to it sooner or later. But I love the fact that we share a passion of bass fishing, let alone kayak fishing, and then we like us some Lose and Strike King as well.
Love it.
But I hope you the best success. We'll be rooting for you the whole season. And someday I'm thinking maybe next year I want to start venturing out as I get closer to retirement myself. I'd like to venture out and do some of these bigger, events and just see what it's like to, not that I ever think that I would do, but just to go experience it. I'm going to spend more time doing the local derb stuff, whereas I spend so much, I always prioritize YouTube over fishing. And that's sometimes what you have to do as a fishing channel when you're trying to teach people, because, I know there's some people who don't have time for YouTube, even though they want to, but your primary focus has to be catching those fish versus making sure camera angles and blah, 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 blah. It's nice to do, but a lot of people are learning it takes a crap ton of time to edit. And sometimes you're better off just focused on fishing and posting some stuff on Instagram.
Yeah. That's where we're at right now. We're working. I've got a couple cameras I've been playing with. We're trying to get at that program. But hey, I think you guys should come down to the BOS at Kentucky Lake. It's I think the event is headquartered in Calvert City, Kentucky, which is not too terribly far from y'all. I think that'd be a good event for y'all to come down. I got a buddy that
when they motorize the Hobie tournaments, because old Gramps is in the autopilot now.
I could do it.
I sold the paddle kayak. I'm up for uber lazy now.
I got you. Fair enough. I'd extend it out. I think that's going to be a tournament that people are going to overlook. I got a buddy that lives in Paris and says says Kentucky Lake's on the uptick. So I've got me a place to stay, and I'm looking forward to it and excited.
Yeah, that's a good looking place you posted up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great place, man. Eric Nichols has done a great job. He's got lodges in different places. I think he kind of co-owns one down at Chickamauga now, and I know he's building one out at Grand Lake in Oklahoma. And it's the only place I stay when I go to Kentucky Lake, and has been for quite a few years now. And that's
awesome.
I pay the same price everybody else does when I go there. I just know he's a good dude, and he used to be from Maryville, and he hooks me up with some old baits every now and then that I've got a hankering for, some old discontinued stuff. So
there you go.
He's a good dude.
Well, I can make you this promise, Jordan. If we ever do fish together, you were talking about looking to that meal at the end of the night or at the end of a fishing day, you can ask Gramps. I can make some barbecue. I'm a barbecue man.
He took a drum smoker with us when we were down at Kentucky Lake.
They had smoked chicken, smoked steaks. We had smoked brats. They ate good every night.
Yes, we did.
Any house you want to stay in that we're in, guys, make an exception. We've got a guy that we like to stay with in North Carolina. His name's Paul. Man, I can't think of his name. But he does the Bass and Brews podcast.
Okay,
I know that
Paul Roberts. Yeah, he brought us some giant tomahawk steaks last year when we stayed at Santee Cooper. That was awesome. So we're all the time welcome to anybody that wants to come
bring food,
culinary knowledge, and drop it on us. The Austin Vang, who finished in the top 10 at the Bassmaster, he actually cooked steaks for us. He got the honorary steak cook agenda for the classic, and made a kind of an Asian inspired steak with some sort of hoisin sauce or something. I ain't never heard.
Oh yeah.
No, man. I just do normal barbecue, just regular.
That's fine. I'm a barbecue man. My buddy owns a barbecue restaurant here in town.
That's good.
I'm a barbecue.
Now we're talking. We are talking, even though we're losing weight so we can have more capacity in our kayaks. But
some of us already
that's part of it too. All right, good sir. We will let you get out of here. Again, thank you so much for coming, hanging out with us,
pleasure
man.
Meeting you, dude.
It's going to be a pleasure watching you fish this year. We certainly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right. Take care. We'll have to get you on again later on so you can give us like an end of year tournament update too.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, thanks. All right, folks. Jordan Marshall, that was incredible. It's fun having guys like that you can talk to that will just come on and tell us about what they got going on, especially guys that are up and comers too. You know, it's really cool. But join us again on Friday where Matt, Jeremy, and I will be live for Freedom Squad Friday. We're going to talk about Catch 22 and where everybody's at. We're going to talk about the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series. And we're going to do a recap of our trip down to the Bassmaster Classic. But thanks, everybody, for hopping in tonight and hanging out in the chat. We know we weren't paying attention to you too much, but, you know, we will certainly do that on Freedom Squad Friday night. So, Matt.
Hey, thanks, chat. You guys were awesome. You all can catch me on Twitch. I'll try to be live every night, and it's twitch.tv/OEF5 if you want to watch us live. I know people have asked before, but I'll just throw the link in real quick. You don't have to follow me, but if you follow, you'll get notified when I'm live, so that you can watch along. And Jeremy is with me 99% of the time, like most of the time. So it's a Freedom Squad event, and you can hear him talking smack to me. We were out the other day, and we had Sandwich Searcher with us, who really talked a lot of smack. But he was the only one that caught fish. Put a 19-inch fish on the board. So
Sure did.
We will
and
be
we're all
out
getting
Saturday.
together. We're all getting together for a Freedom Squad gathering on Saturday, but we'll talk more about that on Friday night. Until next time, get outside when you can, because, hey, it's springtime finally coming. Tornadoes, rain, sunshine, it's all heading this way, but fishing season is upon us. Until next time, get outside when you can and make some memories. One cast at a time.
Freedom Squad.